Hey everyone. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about how or why I got into real estate. I didn't care about money growing up as a kid. Loved math, science, thought a lot philosophically. It was sometime in college during my co-op internships, which I did not like. Loved school, loved learning, didn't like the internships. It had started to occur to me that I might have screwed up in my career choice, needed to figure out how to make money long term, started waking up to what's probably obvious to most people, which is that most of life is about making money and sustaining yourself. So in my research, I started at that time reading the basics, Napoleon Hill, Rich Dad Poor Dad, those sorts of things, and started to learn this idea of real estate. Right, started to learn the difference between employment and trading your time for money versus assets. Now, I had a leg up here. My dad taught me about investing when I was very, very young. I was just buying and selling, even short selling stocks at the age of 6, 7. And in that research, the thing that seemed most attractive to me was the idea of real estate, but I didn't have money. I couldn't go around buying real estate at the time. So fast forward to about a decade after college, I'd been working as an engineer. Again, I went into a degree program that I thought was a good mix of what I was capable at, enjoyed, but something that would make me real money and give me flexibility to work anywhere. Saved a lot of that money, always lived well beneath my means. Was able to actually retire at the age of 34. But then also decided at that time, or a few years later, that it might be fun to unretire and try this next big thing. I'd never started a business that had quite as much of a need of upfront funding. I used my own money and read many books, listened to many more, probably read about 20 different books on real estate investing. Obviously started leaning into house hacking and the BRRRR method. And I love the math and the spreadsheets and the planning and the imagination side of real estate. I love looking through the real estate listings. This one I eventually bought my first home was 2022, just a few years ago. It was a single family home in northern Georgia. And as far as I could tell, there was no way that you could get into real estate and have an income cash flowing property, at least at my buy-in level, unless I did rent by room. So my first was a house hack. That means that I lived in the house. I could also buy it with a conventional home loan, which also meant I could put less money down, which to me isn't important. I know this is a supposedly debatable topic, but to me, real estate investing almost only makes sense if you have the 20x leverage, meaning you put down a 5% down payment and the rest is covered by a conventional home loan. If you're getting up into the DSCR loans, I don't think there's anything out there for you right now. I don't. This is not a good time to be buying into real estate. So I bought my first home. I had done the upfront study and had plenty of different career successes before, but no real experience in real estate. And only limited experience in running my own businesses. And things started to go well. Things worked out. It seemed like I had found a good enough property, good enough price, which, by the way, I offered 10% over the asking price because it was not a buyer's market. It was a seller's market. There's a lot of competition, and I wanted to get in. So while everyone else was complaining that they kept getting outbidded, I just put in a winning bid to move on with life and, keep on doing the thing instead of sitting on the sidelines doing nothing or complaining about things. So got that done, got into the house, moved into the house, started learning how to run a house. I had never owned a house before. I'd always rented before that or lived with family. Ran the house, started learning basic handyman skills, and put up my first room for rent. Tried lots of different platforms, eventually Facebook Marketplace, which is terrible. It's still the best option. and got my first tenant. It took a while. I was scared. I thought, oh goodness, this business does not work. It's taken, when I say a while, I mean months, 6 months before I got my first tenant, another 6 months before I got my next tenant. So it was a very slow start. Looking back, I'm not exactly sure what the reason for that was, honestly. Maybe I wasn't focused enough. Maybe I wasn't being aggressive enough. Maybe I was overpricing. I don't have a good answer for that right now. It does not take me that long anymore. I'm still using Facebook Marketplace. I don't post myself anymore. I have a friend post. My pictures are better. My descriptions, I think, are similar, but I have learned what people care about more or less. And when I bought a second property a year later, I eventually converted all of those into master bedrooms. So I've also learned that people care about having their own private bathroom, so on and so forth. So my offering is better. The new house is closer to Atlanta, so on and so forth. So I am stepping up in the world slowly, having better room arrangements, better listings, better software. My software is fantastic. I've been working in software. I mean, I wrote my first software when I was about 5 years old. Did my first software work when I was, I think, in 8th grade. I did not major in software. I worked in electrical engineering and communications engineering before self-teaching into software, but I've now worked in software for over 10 years professionally, and the last 6 or 7 years of that was in real estate startup companies, building apps for fund management and property management. And now with AI out, I can vibe code entire systems for myself very quickly. So I've got a complete suite of tools. The last startup I worked for, I basically rebuilt everything that they built in a couple months alone, on my own. And so I love making the apps. Again, sort of an extension of the spreadsheet, the problem solving, the theorizing. Most recently, I've built a room rent rate calculator, which basically takes my known data, solves not just what the rent rate should be, but solves what each component of a room is theoretically worth. How much is it worth to have a private bathroom, an attached bathroom, a nice bathroom, upstairs or downstairs, square footage, which city, etc. So now I've got even with only 2 properties, with a little bit of software engineering, I'm able to get a really robust solution to which components of a room rental adds how much down to the dollar of theoretical value to that rental room. So these are the type of things that I really enjoy doing. The biggest challenge, as you all know from the previous videos, is keeping the rooms rented. There's potentially other challenging things. So when I say challenging, I mean that which is challenging and most close to the needs of the business. Right? Every day that one of these rooms is not rented is roughly $30 of cash loss. Right? For a $900 room at 30 days a month, every day that you don't have a tenant, you're losing out on $30 per room per day. So keeping these rooms filled is important, and I do month-to-month rentals, and almost everyone has stayed long-term. Maybe that's because I keep the rentals rates low. Maybe it's because the rooms are pretty good. Part of it might be, that it's not terrible to live in a place that I've put together. I don't, not sure. I also do some things to try to keep harmony in the household. I'm real clear with people that the goal is not following rules. The goal is harmony. It is not tolerating where you live and living within some restrictions that I've written. It is about, and it's not just about trust, cleanliness, and these basics. It's about liking where you live. And if there's some disharmony and contention between you and the other housemates, it needs to be resolved. You need to feel at home at your home. That's my bar. It's not bare minimum rule following. And so for the most part, I've found that the tenants are happy and they stay. I even have the tenants admit to me that if I raise the rent rate, they would stay. So that part is solved. The acquisition of new tenants is still a bit of a struggle. There's not a wonderful platform out there. Facebook Marketplace, again, is what I use, even though it's buggy, it's opaque, Don't need to get into it. Check the other videos. And that's where we are today. I've put a lot of my own capital into the business. I've not recovered all of those losses, but the business does now cash flow with 2 properties and 9 units. We're in year 4 for the first property, and year 3 for the second property, and 4 years overall for the business. So we're in a decent state and just need things to keep going better. Now, if interest rates go up, whatever, no problem. If interest rates go down, then I could potentially refinance the second house, which is at a fairly high interest rate. If property values go up, I can potentially pull cash out and potentially invest in new properties or do whatever I want with it. And if property values go down, wouldn't be a great scenario for me. But that's where we are. I can shift and respond to sort of whatever is coming up in the future. Honestly, the most ideal situation would be a very healthy economy so that everyone, tenants, prospective tenants, all have very healthy options for jobs. They're all able to get jobs, keep jobs, be happy with their jobs. And, that would be great for me as well, because then they're able to pay the rent. I could potentially increase the rent. And I'm on fixed loans, right? So my payments stay roughly the same. It has been not good that utilities have been going up, tax rates have been going up, so on and so forth, right? That is more expense. That is not fixed rate expense for me. The mortgage rate is fixed. I have the opportunity to refinance. The utilities going up is not good. So with the utility and those variable rates going up, and the economy not getting better, that's a tough squeeze for me. I keep the rents. I have never raised rents on an existing tenant. I do raise rents when a room goes vacant. And so with the variable expenses continue to go up and the rent staying mostly the same, I still don't feel like I'm rolling in easy money here at all. I still am living as cheaply as possible, in some ways more cheaply than I've ever lived in my life. And the workload, though, I have to admit, is quite nice. I am not working 60 hours a week like I did in software at startup companies. Not at all. Able to be way more flexible, able to respect where I'm at in any given day. There's rarely a real crisis to respond to. And so that's a lot of the upsides. I think that's it for now. Nice long summary. And always happy to answer questions if you have them. Go ahead and leave them in the comments. Take care.